Hi, in this video we'll be covering the basic information you need to start collecting digital signatures on the After-School Manager software. One thing to keep in mind before we get started is this graphic that you may have seen in our other videos. As we've explained in our other videos, every piece of attendance needs to have a student, a program, after school or before school, a date to determine base versus supplemental, a time in, a time out, and a signature maybe. This is the video series that discusses this maybe. Now keep this in mind because no matter how we record attendance and collect signatures, the system is going to somehow have to derive this information. So I'll go back to my main screen. I'll just go ahead and log in as a site lead. And you may notice over here to the left a new set of menu options. Up here on the top menu under Video Training, you'll see a new section titled Digital Signatures, which includes all the videos for this training session. The video you're watching now is the basics. And depending on how you decide to collect digital signatures, you may end up skipping one or more of these videos. For example, if you don't have before school programs, you would skip the before school programs video, and if you're a K-8 program, you'd skip video number 4. I do suggest that you watch the remaining videos, even if you're not planning to do what the title is describing, because these videos may contain important information that you may find useful later on. So the very first link I'm going to click on is this Manage Kiosk link. Now, if you look at the videos in the upper right-hand corner, and if you're going to have staff manually check in and check out students and present a device to parents to provide a digital signature, you may want to skip this Manage Kiosk altogether. Now, if what I'm saying doesn't make sense, these videos will describe each of those options in depth. For now, just understand that the kiosk is going to be a physical device like an iPad or other type of tablet that's going to be set out in a common area, and students or parents can check themselves out and sign at the end of the day. There is another option where your staff can control the check-in and checking out and the collection of signatures, and it is using this Express Check-in and Checkout feature. So if you look over here under Attendance, you'll notice that you have Express Check-in and Checkout links. Now you're going to have those regardless of whether you're doing digital signatures, but the reason that Express Check-in and Checkout has its own video here and here is that the digital signature method will allow you to collect a digital signature at the end of the day, whereas you're not required to do it if you're using Express Check-in and Checkout, and that'll make more sense once you watch this video. For now, the only thing you need to know is that either staff will control the check-in and checking out, or you'll use a kiosk where the parents or students sign themselves out manually. And so this page that we're on describes how to set up that kiosk. So currently the Manage Kiosk page is set up into 3 sections: the daily QR codes, the kiosk user account, and the kiosk PIN. So for daily QR codes, there is an option when you set up your kiosk to display a QR code. So let me pick one of my rosters here, and you'll notice there's a QR code. The idea behind this is that parents or students can scan this code in with their device, like their cell phone. They will get a kiosk screen, and they can check themselves out and possibly sign on their own device and not have to wait in line for a kiosk to be available. This again will have its own video, but you'll notice that it says not yet available. And the reason is that this thing works, but if I click print, something weird happens. And it just so happens that today the company that provides these QR codes for us is having an issue, and within the next week they'll get it resolved. What would have happened here is that you would have got a nice printout with this QR code and instructions that you could print out and leave for parents. But again, this will have its own video, no need to worry about it now. So next is the kiosk user account. Now by default, whenever we switch on this digital sign out feature, you'll be assigned a kiosk user account. We'll discuss what this means in detail in the kiosk training video, but for now just know that if you're going to set up a kiosk that students or parents are going to have in their hands, you don't want to be using your admin credentials that allows you to modify students and enter attendance. You just want them to be able to use that kiosk, and that's it. So that's what this account does. It's a very stripped down account. All it can do is log into the kiosk and allow people to sign themselves out. So by default, the system's going to give you this random string of characters, and if you don't like that, you can go ahead and change it. The only stipulation is that it can't already exist in the system. There you go. That's in use, so I will just call it Kiosk 2. Update that, success, and it's worth noting that this doesn't even have to be a real address. I could just put something strange there, and that's okay. You're not going to receive any email to this email address, you're just going to use it to log into that kiosk. So let me change it back. And the last thing you'll need to do is set up a password, so I will just type in a password here. Update that password, and now my account is set. And if I wanted to right now, I could log into my kiosk account using these credentials and set up my kiosk for use. But again, That's another training video. So the last thing on this page is the idea of a kiosk pin. So you may have students who have custody issues, and allowing just anyone to come in and sign them out isn't acceptable. So you'll see later in the kiosk video how this pin is used. For now, just know that there is a pin. It's going to default to 1234, and you can change it very easily. So I'll set mine to 2222. It's got to be 4 digits. There it is. And now you're all set up. And so at this point, if you'd like to just go ahead and go over to the parents and students will check themselves in and out, it will give you a detailed view of how to set up your kiosk and how that works. However, since we're in the basics videos, we still have a few more features to go over that's common to every type of digital signature capture method. So the other things you need to know are how to do a mass checkout and how to print signature sheets. However, doing either of those doesn't make any sense right now. Printing signature sheets with no signatures doesn't do us much good. Doing a mass checkout without having checked students in doesn't do us much good. And so why don't we just go and check some students in? Now remember in this graphic that all attendance is the same. Student, program, date, time in, time out, and possibly a signature. So whether I go to take attendance here, or transcribe attendance here, or express check-in and check-out, they all record this information. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the express check-in feature because that's the easiest way to take attendance. I'm going to go ahead and click here. I'm going to select a roster. I have 3 test rosters set up right now. And if what I'm doing seems foreign to you, go ahead and watch the Express check-in and check-out video. It details this screen and exactly what it does and how to use it. It will explain why I would click this capture signatures or why I would use the current timestamp instead of typing in a time. But for now, just very quickly, this screen was designed to be used on something small, like let's say a cell phone. And I would just check my students in. Okay, let me get out of this mode here. I've checked a few students in, and so let me add some attendance to a different roster just so we can see how the mass checkout is going to work. So I'm going to pick another roster that I have set up, click these students in. They are now checked in. And now if I go to mass checkout, you'll see a list of your students and any roster that they're checked into. So the idea is that if you had, for example, a bunch of walkers that are going to be released at the same time, and no parent is going to sign them out, then you could just filter down to that group, select all, mass sign out, you give the time that they're being released, provide a signature, and that signature gets applied to all those students. So they're now gone. I can go here and just bring back my full list. Now those students aren't on this list anymore because this is a list of students who have been checked in but not checked out. And so now if I go to the signature sheets section, I'll pick a roster, and you'll see the students that I signed out with their time and the signature that I input. And this is where you can use these filters to see if anybody was checked in but's missing a timeout. There's those students, anyone who has a signature, and so on. This screen will also tell you what attendance method was used to record the check-in and check-out, and how the signature was obtained. And so the last thing to mention on this screen is that if you click this print, you will get what should look like the original non-digital sign-out sheet, but with a bunch of information added. So here are our 2 walkers, Kate Adams, Adams Annabella, time in, time out, number of minutes in the program, and the signature that we applied. And so since there's this early release code column, we may as well just go show you where those are located. The instructions for entering those do exist in the Quick Start Guide, but we can go over it again very briefly because over here in the Manage Kiosk, we did talk about students with custody issues, and we have seen the early release codes on the printable sheet. So if I go over here to Student Master List, I get a list of my students. Now the portions that relate to what we've been doing, if I double-click any student, I can say that there is a court-mandated custody or visitation issue, and that relates to that custody pin. And again, if that doesn't make sense yet, don't worry. That will be covered in depth in one of these videos. And let's add an early release late arrival to this student. So let's say it's early release, 5:30 p.m. because of transportation. We will type in a reason there. For another reason. Get rid of that. And the last thing to mention is on this mass checkout, you'll notice that we were able to filter them by Walker Pickup Bus Rider. That is here. There is another video under the Student Master List, which goes over all of this stuff that I'm talking about, and actually shows an easier way to group the kids by their release status. But for now, I'll just keep that the same. And so now that I've added an early release to Kate, if I go here to my signature sheets, print this report again, you will see that early release information listed there. Code number 3, 5:30 is the early release time, and the codes are listed here at the bottom. And so the last piece of basic information you need, which isn't going to make much sense now, but if I go to my rosters, which you've all done so far, you'll notice that I have a lot of test rosters set up here. One with digital not selected, so if I go to Edit Rosters, it's set to physical hard copy, no digital signatures collected. I have another, which is signatures optional. And here I did click digital signatures, and once you click digital signatures, it's going to ask you if signatures are optional or signatures are required. It's safer to use signatures optional because you'll get an opportunity later when you see the kiosk video to require those as needed. If you click signature required here, it's always going to be required no matter how you take attendance on this roster. But I'm going to go ahead and leave that alone. And so I have 3 rosters: digital not selected, signature optional, and signature required. And again, if that doesn't make sense, it's going to be very important in this training video for the kiosk, and we will refer back to it when we get to that video. For now, to recap, we set up our kiosk. We may or may not have done some digital codes. We set up our kiosk account by choosing an email address, which doesn't have to be real, set up a password for that kiosk account, set up a PIN to use in case of custody issues. Again, this is all based on the kiosk, and if you're doing express check-in and check-out with signatures, you don't need any of this stuff. We saw how to set our students' information so that it works with the kiosk and the digital sign-out methods by double-clicking on a student and modifying some of their information. We saw how to mass check out students. And we saw how to print out signature sheets if we wanted a printable version of what was entered. Now, if you stuck around long enough to watch this entire video, then the other sections are going to go very, very quickly because the things in this video are common to all these videos, so we don't have to go over those in each video. And if I had a suggestion on what to watch next, I would say watch the Express Check-In and Checkout video, and then watch video number 2. These 2 videos are related, and this seems like a very, very popular option based on the feedback we've been getting. So have at it, and thanks.